On this Thursday night, the initial findings into last month's deadly collision between an Air Canada jet and a fire truck. The failures made that tragic day. The U.S. president says he's under no pressure to end the war on Iran.
I don't want to rush myself.
As both the U.S. military and Iranian forces seize ships, exposing dating advice in the manosphere.
Everything vile and gross that you could think of exists in these chats.
Plus, they say it's about time.
It's outdated. It's inconvenient.
The latest places in Canada abandoning standard time. Who might be next, and how the move could affect people's health.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We are getting more insight into that fatal crash on the runway at New York's LaGuardia Airport in March. The American National Transportation Safety Board has released a second-by-second account of the moments before the Air Canada Jazz flight collided with an airport fire truck. The NTSB says a firefighter in that truck, which the tower had cleared to cross the runway, didn't know if an order to stop was intended for him. The crash was catastrophic, crushing the cockpit and killing the pilots. Jackson Proskow breaks down the communication failures this preliminary report reveals. Jackson.
Donna, the initial NTSB findings show that firefighters on board that airport fire truck heard the air traffic controller shout, "Stop, stop, stop," just before they crossed into the path of the landing Air Canada Express jet. But by the time they realized the warning was for them, they were already on the runway.
Stop, 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 stop.
Seconds later, Air Canada Express Flight 8646 collided with the fire truck, killing the pilot and co-pilot and injuring about 40 of the 76 people on board. The fire truck had originally been cleared to cross the runway 12 seconds before the plane touched down. Data from the jet shows it was still traveling at 167 kilometers per hour at the moment of the crash. Now, it all happened on an unusually busy night when controllers were dealing with a backlog of flights while coordinating an emergency response for another aircraft. The fire truck was not equipped with a transponder that would have alerted air traffic controllers to a potential collision. And investigators also say that a number of emergency vehicles were lined up behind the truck. They were also waiting to cross the runway, and their proximity kept the ground incursion alert system from working properly. Investigators did find that stoplights on the runway for ground traffic were working normally. Now, these are just the initial findings, and a more detailed investigation is still underway. That could take up to a year. Donna?
All right, Jackson Proskow in Washington, thanks. The U.S. president claims he is under no pressure to end the war he and Israel's prime minister started with Iran, despite the economic damage it's doing to the world economy. Donald Trump claimed today the U.S. has total control of the critical shipping lane, the Strait of Hormuz, and that he will open it once Iran makes a deal. He didn't like reporters' questions about how long that might take.
What do you say to the American people who question how much longer this will take? Obviously, you know that they are having higher...
You're such a disgrace. Did you hear what I just said? Vietnam. How many years was Vietnam?
I understand, sir. But
how many years was
your
Vietnam?
6-week deadline, so
well, I did my...
I
took the country out militarily in the first 4 weeks.
The reality is the war has driven up gas prices in the U.S. and driven down Trump's poll numbers. The New York Times polling average found 58% of Americans disapprove of the president's job performance. And as Mike Armstrong reports, there still does not appear to be an endgame for the war on Iran.
We intend to conduct the boarding of your vessel.
There was a show of force Thursday from both sides in the war. This video was released by the U.S. Defense Department showing American troops boarding a sanctioned vessel in the Indian Ocean. The Pentagon says it was transporting oil from Iran. On the other side, this video released by Iranian state media. It shows, according to Tehran, commandos from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps seizing a container ship in the Strait of Hormuz. The IRGC says it has detained 2 ships this week and directed them to the Iranian coast. Now, there is very little movement in the strait. Vessel tracking sites show minimal traffic. Well, satellite images from Wednesday do appear to show a fleet of small boats near the coast of Iran.
They've been obliterated, Jeff, obliterated.
Now, while the U.S. president says all of Iran's navy has been destroyed, its less conventional fast attack boats are still a threat. They're sometimes called mosquito fleets, darting in and out of the strait, targeting shipping. It's believed about 100 have been destroyed by the U.S. since the war started, but that may only be a fraction of what Iran has been stockpiling for years, hiding them in coastal tunnels or with civilian boats.
Wise guy ships, I call them the wise guy ships, the little boats that they have running around with guns in them. We'll take them out too when we see them.
Now, Israel's foreign minister Thursday said his country is set to resume its campaign against Iran. He said the military has already chosen targets and is waiting for the green light from the U.S. When it comes, the minister said they'll complete the elimination of the Khamenei dynasty and, quote, return Iran to the dark and stone ages. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
At the same time, rare talks between Israel and Lebanon resumed in Washington today, and President Trump says both have agreed to extend a ceasefire between Israel and the Iran-backed military group Hezbollah by 3 weeks. Hezbollah says it does not agree with the deal. There have been multiple violations by both sides. Fighting in Lebanon threatens to undermine efforts to reach a larger peace deal between Israel, the U.S., and Iran. Canada's Prime Minister is backing some of the country's premiers who are still refusing to sell American-made alcohol. This week, White House officials said it is a major sticking point ahead of CUSMA negotiations between Canada and the U.S. But the Prime Minister is standing his ground. David Aiken is with me from Ottawa. David.
Well, Donna, when U.S. President Donald Trump first slapped Canada with tariffs on Canadian forestry, steel, and autos, many premiers slapped back by instructing provincially owned liquor stores to drop U.S. booze. Well, the White House this week says those booze bans are one of America's chief trade irritants with Canada. Prime Minister Mark Carney today said Canada has its own complaints.
Look, you know what's an irritant? 50% tariff on steel, 50% tariff on aluminum, 25% tariff on automobiles, all the tariffs on forest products. Those are more than irritants. Those are violations of our trade deal.
Premier, thanks so much for joining us.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford took to a U.S. cable news show the day after U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said it was, quote, outrageous and disrespectful that U.S. spirits were not being sold in most of Canada.
We never started this tariff war, and I don't believe the American people did. It was Secretary Lutnick, followed by President Trump as well, that attacked our joint economies.
And Carney said he was not about to tell Ford what to do.
Surprise, surprise, the Premier of Ontario is influential with the LCBO. Okay. But he's the client. He's also the duly elected Premier of Ontario. He's got a majority. And he's taking a view, which, you know, by most indications is supported by the vast majority of the population.
Carney says the booze ban, along with U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and so on, are appropriately dealt with as part of the broader review of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement. Canada wants a strengthened three-way agreement and appears to be in no rush to negotiate one-off deals, be it about U.S. whiskey or Canadian aluminum. Donna.
Okay, David Aiken in Ottawa, thank you. Canadian businesses hit by those Trump administration tariffs have been battered by them, and in some sectors there is skepticism the Prime Minister's strategy will pay off. Heidi Petracek has been talking to people whose livelihoods are on the line.
This Ottawa door manufacturer was already feeling the pain of Donald Trump's tariffs. Then earlier this month, the United States changed how it levied metal duties on imported goods, putting a 25% tariff on a product's entire value rather than just the value of the metal it's made with.
It wasn't something we could anticipate. So we were unable to advise our customers, and frankly, we'll have to swallow that percentage increase.
The company's CEO is disappointed with how Canada has dealt with U.S. tariffs so far.
When I look at what the election brought us a year ago, I was expecting the Prime Minister to be much more of a force with the American government than has been the case.
With the mandatory review of the trade agreement between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico looming, business owners told a parliamentary committee this week it's urgent.
How critical is a long-term trade agreement to the survival of the mold-making industry?
We won't be around without it.
Businesses have been put through the ringer.
Which is why their national federation is glad to hear Canada won't make more concessions just to get back to the table with the states.
We're hoping to make sure that we have a deal that is at least as good as the deal that we have now.
Softwood lumber isn't part of free trade. U.S. trade penalties are now up to 45%. The industry says that all needs to change.
We have been very clear with the government that lumber needs to be part of a durable solution.
As some mills lay off workers, one union worries about the Trump administration's tone.
They just want to create chaos and create the best, what they think will be the best for them, and that's not how bargaining works.
I'd like there to be a sense of urgency.
Back in Ottawa, Jack Schinder says too much time has already passed, and his business is in the balance. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Alberta is launching a new website to provide information about a province-wide referendum in October. It includes the government's position on the 9 referendum questions, including proposals to restrict social services from some immigrants and whether the government should push to have the federal Senate abolished.
In our view, a referendum is the purest and most direct form of democracy and is the most appropriate way for us to seek the input that we need to act on these important issues.
What is not on the ballot is a question about whether Alberta should separate from Canada. Alberta separatists are collecting signatures for a petition, but a judge has ordered a temporary pause on that process to get it on the referendum ballot. The International Criminal Court will move forward with crimes against humanity charges against former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte. He was arrested in the Philippines last year. Pre-trial judges found there were substantial grounds to believe he was a key figure in thousands of murders during his war on drugs. Prosecutors say Duterte's campaign targeted and killed small-time drug dealers while the kingpins went unscathed. A trial date has not yet been set. The British and French governments have signed a $922 million deal to try to stop undocumented migrants from making the dangerous trek across the English Channel. More than 40,000 people were smuggled across the Channel last year, and over the past 3 years, at least 162 people have died trying. The money will be used to hire hundreds of new police officers and to buy surveillance drones and helicopters. Anger over the increase in illegal migration has fueled protests and the rise of the Reform UK Party, which is predicted to make sweeping gains in elections on May 7th. Dating and the dark world of the manosphere. Coming up, how a growing corner of the digital world degrades women. The biggest Hollywood takeover in years has been approved. Shareholders of Warner Brothers Discovery have been given the green light for a mega merger with Paramount Skydance. The $110 billion deal will combine the two film studios under the same corporate roof and reshape American entertainment. It does still need regulatory approval. In another vote, shareholders rejected the $886 million payout Warner's CEO David Zaslav will receive from the deal. That vote, though, is non-binding, which means the company is not required to adjust his pay package. Another troubling social media trend is emerging linked to the manosphere. Online communities focused on hypermasculinity and misogyny. Self-proclaimed pickup artists in these groups are now sharing more of their sexual exploits online, some of them filmed covertly without any consent. They celebrate their so-called achievements while degrading the women they target. Jeff Semple explains, and a warning, some of the details in his story are disturbing.
It's become a popular social media marketing tactic.
Excuse me, miss? I really like your style.
Self-styled pickup artists who record themselves approaching women. Their videos are often filmed covertly, using smart glasses, for example. The clips then posted online and in chat groups, along with others sharing images of their own exploits.
They're like sharing photos of their conquest or their videos of their conquest in these chats, and then the other guys are celebrating it.
Justine Hopkins warns that in some cases there's a darker side to these so-called conquests. The university student says she was targeted by a self-styled dating coach, and after her experience, she started infiltrating these manosphere chat groups.
Pretty much everything vile and gross that you could think of exists in these chats, but I would say the biggest one is the non-consensual sharing of intimate imagery. And I don't think any of these women knew that they were being filmed or that these photos have been shared on Telegram.
There's so many Telegram chats.
She showed us some examples, including numerous messages with language degrading women. The secretly recorded videos range from men initiating conversation, to kissing, to more intimate images. Hopkins found at least one video that appears to show a woman unconscious in bed.
These are communities of men looking to impress other men with these ideas of conquest. Posting photos or videos like this is a way of gaining clout in those communities.
Those with clout are able to market their services to other men, offering paid training courses.
The pickup artist community seems to be driven largely by monetization and misogyny.
Hopkins says many of these dating coaches have amassed large online followings. She's speaking out in hopes of bringing awareness and saving others from her experience. Jeff Semple, Global News, Toronto.
We have some of the largest sets in history. We're breaking dozens of world records.
He's known as Mr. Beast. His real name is Jimmy Donaldson, and he's a YouTube megastar. Now his company is being sued by a former executive over allegations of sexual harassment and workplace gender bias. Lorraine Mavromatis accuses Beast Industries of perpetuating behavior demeaning to women and treating male staff more favorably. The suit also claims the company dismissed her complaints about another executive's sexual advances and fired her shortly after she returned from maternity leave. Beast Industries denies the allegations. Ahead, a warning about the state of ocean currents and their effect on regulating the weather. It's only April and intense wildfires are already raging in parts of the southeastern U.S. In Georgia, nearly 100 firefighters are battling the Pineland Road fire. It's destroyed more than 50 homes and another 1,000 are under threat, and it's burned nearly 12,000 hectares. In Florida, hundreds of Amtrak passengers were stranded because of wildfires earlier this week. Authorities are warning it could be Florida's worst fire season in decades. Scientists are warning about what's happening to Atlantic Ocean currents and the impact it's having on weather. New research suggests climate change could cause them to weaken even more. The offshore currents play a critical role in regulating weather on land. Redmond Shannon reports on the potentially profound implications for Canada and beyond.
April is perhaps the most challenging month in Canada, when the so-called false spring can give way to yet more snow and ice. But in Europe at this time of year, spring has very much sprung, even here in the UK, which is as far north as Labrador. The reason is the warm North Atlantic current from the Caribbean to Europe. It's part of a larger Atlantic system where the water cools, sinks and flows south past Atlantic Canada. That is a part of a global ocean system that regulates weather around the world. The Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC, is currently weakening, although it's not yet certain if that has been driven by our changing climate. Numerous studies have predicted global warming will weaken AMOC further. And new French research published in the journal Science Advances indicates it could be at the steeper end of the scale, a 50% drop in its strength by the end of the century.
What this paper is doing is it's using real observations of the ocean to give more weight to models that look more like the real ocean.
It could mean colder winters in Europe, a shift in tropical rainfall which could alter food crops in parts of Africa, and Canada could have more precipitation and inundation.
That sea level on the east coast of North America increases by quite a significant amount. And that, of course, has profound implications for coastal hazards and flooding.
Professor Penny Holliday says a lot of research still needs to be done, ideally involving all Atlantic nations, coordinating to measure exactly how the ocean is changing along with the climate. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Not turning back time, Alberta and the Northwest Territories stop the clocks. The potential health consequences next. He's 8 today. The Prince and Princess of Wales released this video and a new photo of their youngest son, Prince Louis. It's taken during a family vacation, and they thank the public for all of the birthday wishes. Well, more Canadians will be leaving their clocks alone this fall. Alberta has introduced legislation to adopt permanent daylight saving time, and the Northwest Territories says it will follow suit. With most of Western Canada and the North now ditching seasonal time changes, pressure is building on the rest of the country. Heather Yourex-West looks at why it's happening and why it could present some challenges.
It's a big scheduling adjustment for kids, and I guess it adds a complexity if you're a shift worker.
Daylight saving time has been a twice-a-year ritual in Canada since 1908. But this fall, Alberta clocks are staying put.
Yeah, it's great. I don't like changing it, and I work shift work, so.
It's outdated, it's inconvenient, and it doesn't reflect how people live or work today.
Northwest Territories says it will join Alberta, meaning this November with Yukon, British Columbia and Saskatchewan already on fixed time. Most of Western Canada will leave their clocks alone. But keeping it all straight might take some time. While the Territories, BC and Alberta, are adopting permanent daylight saving time, Saskatchewan keeps Central Standard Time. So clocks in Alberta and Saskatchewan will sync up year-round. In the meantime, Manitoba's thinking about it too.
From what I understand, Alberta is going to move to Saskatchewan time. The experts are telling us we should also move to Saskatchewan time. So could we maybe have a prairie time zone by the end of the year?
Nova Scotia's premier says they're also mulling it over, but only if other Atlantic provinces come on side. Research shows that when it comes to health benefits like preventing stroke and obesity, Saskatchewan is doing it right.
For sure, the biannual clock change is the worst choice for health, but the best choice is permanent standard time.
Moving to permanent daylight saving time with dark winter mornings, a December sunrise in Edmonton won't happen until close to 10 o'clock, but more sunshine in late afternoon isn't as good for our bodies, but it still beats changing the clocks.
We're clearly concerned if we're pushing start times later.
From NHL hockey games to transportation, tourism and trade, having parts of Canada now misaligned with U.S. time zones means there will be problems to sort out. But there's time. The annual fallback is still 7 months away. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
That is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Air Canada is Chance Harbour, New Brunswick. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.